Every holiday season, Home Alone feels like a comforting memory. Kevin screaming, burglars slipping, parents racing through airports. But 36 years later, the truth is far darker than the movie ever showed. From divorces and deaths to shocking life turns, the cast's real lives were reshaped in ways no one expected. Join us as we uncover how the Home Alone cast truly changed. Macaulay Culkin as Kevin McAllister. Kevin McAllister, the ingenious, defiant child at the center of Home Alone, was played by Macaulay Culkin. At 10 years old, he embodied a boy forced to grow up fast, turning fear into strategy and isolation into courage. That performance made him unforgettable, and it quietly set the stakes for a life that would never again feel normal. But the camera cut away long before the real story began. Born on August 26, 1980, in Manhattan, New York City, Macaulay Carson Culkin entered a household ruled by instability and control. His father, Kit Culkin, dominated the family with physical and psychological abuse, pushing his son relentlessly while siphoning the rewards of success, while his mother, Patricia Brentrup, fought for custody as the family fractured. As the applause grew louder, the walls at home closed in tighter, leaving a child trapped between fame and fear. The aftermath was brutal. Success multiplied the pressure, not the protection, and Culkin spiraled into depression and substance abuse before he was old enough to understand either. By 15, he took his parents to court to remove them from control of his trust, a public rupture that exposed how little safety fame had provided. Even as audiences remembered My Girl with warmth, he was privately unraveling. Stepping away did not erase the damage, but it stopped the bleeding. His marriage to Rachel Miner, begun when both were just 18, collapsed under the weight of notoriety and ended in divorce, followed years later by a long, painful breakup with Mila Kunis, which he later described as emotionally devastating. His return in Party Monster shocked viewers who still clung to nostalgia, while later work in American Horror Story revealed a performer choosing restraint over spectacle. Today, Macaulay Culkin is 46 years old. He works selectively, runs creative ventures, and raises 2 sons with Brenda Song, building a stability he never had as a child. His estimated $18 million net worth no longer represents childhood excess, but endurance, money that survived what he did. Joe Pesci as Harry Lime. Harry Lime, the volatile, sharp-tongued burglar in Home Alone, was brought to life by Joe Pesci. At 47 years old, he recalibrated menace into controlled chaos, threading genuine threat through slapstick restraint. The comedy worked because the danger underneath was real. That danger had roots far older than the film itself. Born on February 9, 1943, in Newark, New Jersey, Joseph Frank Pesci grew up in a working-class Italian-American family where patience was scarce and toughness was necessary. Financial strain pushed him to work young. Chasing music before acting finally offered a way out. Decades of frustration hardened his edge long before cameras ever found it. That edge defined his peak. While families laughed at Harry Lime, Pesci stood at the center of Goodfellas, earning an Academy Award for a performance so ferocious it became legend. The acclaim arrived with collateral damage. His marriages failed, including a union with Claudia Haro that ended amid public scandal and legal turmoil, leaving emotional scars that followed him long after the headlines faded. Walking away became an act of self-preservation. After earlier divorces and a broken engagement to Angie Everhart, Pesci chose distance over dominance, returning only when persuaded to close the circle with The Irishman, a performance marked by control rather than fury. It felt less like a comeback and more like a reckoning. Now, Joe Pesci is 83 years old. Largely retired, he lives quietly, dividing his time between music and privacy after a lifetime of intensity. His estimated $50 million net worth stands as the residue of a career built on volatility and the cost of surviving it. Daniel Stern as Marv Merchants. Marv Merchants, The tall, soft-spoken, disastrously clumsy burglar in Home Alone was played by Daniel Stern. At 33 years old, he turned physical pain into comedy, allowing humiliation, falls, and slapstick violence to land on his own body for the sake of laughter. The performance looked silly, but it demanded endurance, timing, and a willingness to be hurt so others could laugh. Born on August 28, 1957, in Bethesda, Maryland, Daniel Jacob Stern grew up in a relatively stable, middle-class household, far from the chaos his character embodied. Stability, however, did not mean certainty. He dropped out of school to chase acting in New York, a decision that led to years of financial strain, rejection, and quiet doubt. That patience eventually paid off. While audiences remembered Marv, Stern was simultaneously shaping a deeper legacy through City Slickers and as the reflective adult narrator of the Wonder Years. Yet the workload was punishing. Long shoots, physical injuries from action comedy, and the mental strain of balancing acting, directing, and writing without losing himself. Away from the screen, Stern's life looked calmer, but not untouched by pressure. Married to Laure Matos since 1980, he built a family with 3 children, including future California State Senator Henry Stern, while juggling constant work demands. In later years, he withdrew from Hollywood's pace, turning to sculpture and farming in California, reshaping metal and land the way he once shaped characters. Today, Daniel Stern is 69 years old. He continues to work across acting, directing, and visual art, living largely outside the industry spotlight. His estimated $20 million net worth reflects longevity rather than excess, a career that endured by choosing balance over obsession, even when the world only remembered him for falling down. Catherine O'Hara as Kate McAllister. Kate McAllister, the frantic, guilt-ridden mother racing home in Home Alone, was portrayed by Catherine O'Hara. At 36 years old, she gave emotional weight to panic, shame, and maternal fear, grounding the chaos with urgency rather than comedy. Her performance became the emotional spine of the story. Born on March 4, 1954, in Toronto, Ontario, Catherine Ann O'Hara grew up in a large Irish Catholic family where creativity was encouraged but security was never guaranteed. Entering comedy through Second City and SCTV required nerve and sacrifice, especially as she navigated male-dominated writers' rooms and the constant pressure to be funny without being taken seriously. Early success came with anxiety, not comfort. Her career unfolded steadily rather than explosively. While Beetlejuice established her eccentric brilliance, Home Alone embedded her into popular memory, and decades later Schitt's Creek finally brought industry validation, earning her an Emmy Award and global recognition. Stability arrived through partnership, but not without compromise. Married to production designer Bo Welch since 1992, O'Hara balanced marriage and motherhood with relentless schedules, often choosing family over visibility. She also lives with situs inversus, a rare condition where her internal organs are reversed. Now, Catherine O'Hara is 72 years old. She remains active in film and television, revered rather than chased, selecting roles on her own terms. Her estimated $10 million net worth reflects a career built on endurance, humility, and delayed recognition. Long after the panic fades, her quiet strength is what lingers. John Hurd as Peter McAllister. Peter McAllister, the composed, responsible father in Home Alone, was played by John Hurd. At 44 years old, he brought calm authority to a family spiraling toward chaos, anchoring the film's emotional realism. His presence suggested stability, even as the story quietly unraveled it. But that steadiness was something Hurd spent much of his life trying to hold together. Born on March 7, 1946, in Washington, D.C., John Hurd, Jr. grew up in a disciplined Catholic household tied to government service and the arts. Choosing acting over a conventional academic path created early friction, forcing him to justify a career built on uncertainty. That tension followed him into adulthood, shaping a performer drawn to conflicted, morally strained men. His career never lacked respect, but it rarely offered peace. Alongside Home Alone and its sequel, Hurd earned acclaim in big and later shocked television audiences as the tortured detective Vin Makazian in The Sopranos, a role that brought him an Emmy nomination. Yet the emotional weight of such characters mirrored a private life marked by instability and loss. That instability spilled into his relationships. A brief marriage to Margot Kidder ended almost immediately, followed by a longer union with Sharon Hurd that produced 2 children but collapsed in divorce and bitterness. His final marriage to Lana Pritchard also ended quickly, leaving him isolated, strained, and increasingly fragile as health problems mounted. Sadly, John Hurd died on July 21, 2017, at the age of 71, from cardiac arrest caused by atherosclerotic and hypertensive heart disease. He was found alone in a Palo Alto hotel while recovering from minor surgery, a quiet ending that contrasted sharply with his screen presence. He was laid to rest in Southside Cemetery in Ipswich, Massachusetts, leaving behind an estimated $2.5 million net worth, and a legacy of roles that revealed how easily stability can fracture. Devin Ratray as Buzz McAllister. Buzz McAllister, the loud, arrogant older brother in Home Alone, was played by Devin Ratray. At 13 years old, he embodied cruelty wrapped in comedy, making bullying feel uncomfortably real. The performance stuck, and it would follow him far longer than expected. What followed that early spotlight was far less controlled. Born on January 11, 1977. In New York City, Devin D. Ratray grew up surrounded by the entertainment industry, with actor parents and early exposure to professional pressure. While his childhood appeared stable on the surface, the demands of working young planted stress early, forcing him to mature before he was ready. The line between role and identity slowly blurred. Ratray's career continued steadily rather than spectacularly. He returned for Home Alone 2 and decades later for Home Sweet Home Alone, while earning critical respect in Nebraska and a darker turn in Better Call Saul. Yet momentum was repeatedly interrupted, and recognition never fully replaced the weight of being remembered primarily as a childhood bully. That weight turned dangerous. In 2021, Ratray became the center of a domestic violence case involving allegations of strangulation, followed by further accusations tied to past sexual assault, plunging him into legal turmoil and public condemnation. The scandals eclipsed his work, redefining him overnight and exposing a pattern of self-destruction that had been building for years. Today, Devin Ratray is 49 years old. His acting career is largely overshadowed by legal consequences, suspended sentences, and damaged trust. With an estimated $400,000 net worth, his story stands as a stark reversal, from childhood fame to adult reckoning, leaving audiences stunned by how far the fall can go. Gerry Bamman as Uncle Frank McAllister. Uncle Frank McAllister, the bitter, penny-pinching cynic in Home Alone, was played by Gerry Bamman. At 49 years old, he sharpened cruelty into comedy, delivering insults with a precision that made audiences laugh and wince at the same time. That edge was forged long before the cameras ever rolled. Born on September 18, 1941, in Independence, Kansas, Gerald G. Bamman grew up in a steady Midwestern household shaped by discipline and routine. Leaving that stability to pursue stage acting meant years of uncertainty, rejection, and financial pressure, especially as he committed himself to theater rather than safer paths. The transition demanded patience and emotional toughness that never showed on screen. Recognition came slowly and unevenly. While Home Alone and its sequel etched Uncle Frank into pop culture, Bamman quietly built a parallel career through recurring roles on Law and Order and respected stage work, including translating and performing classic plays. His craft was precise, but fame remained selective, rewarding familiarity over depth. His personal life carried its own fractures. Married to director Emily Mann in 1981, Bamman became a father, but the marriage eventually ended in divorce, leaving distance where partnership once stood. The separation coincided with a gradual retreat from high-profile acting, as he leaned more heavily into theater and writing. Now, Gerry Bamman is 85 years old. He lives largely outside the spotlight, remembered most vividly for a character defined by stinginess and resentment. His estimated $1 million net worth reflects a career rooted in craft rather than celebrity, proof that not all lasting performances come with lasting comfort. Kieran Culkin as Fuller McAllister. Fuller McAllister, the soda-drinking, bedwetting cousin in Home Alone, was played by Kieran Culkin. At just 8 years old, he delivered a few seconds of screen time that audiences never forgot. The humor felt effortless, but the cost of growing up on screen was anything but. Behind that brief laugh was a childhood shaped by pressure and fear. Born on September 30th, 1982 in Manhattan, New York City, Kieran Kyle Culkin grew up in the same cramped apartment and volatile household as his older brother Macaulay. Their father, Kit Culkin, ruled with intimidation and emotional neglect, while fame magnified the strain rather than easing it. Acting arrived early, not as a choice, but as an expectation imposed before he understood consent. As he grew older, Kieran fought to separate himself from childhood identity. Roles in independent films kept him afloat, but stability arrived only years later with Succession, where his portrayal of Roman Roy earned him an Emmy Award and reframed him as a serious actor. The performance resonated because it mirrored his own history. Unlike many child stars, his personal life found balance. In 2013, he married Jazz Charton, choosing privacy over spectacle, and built a family with 3 children. The contrast to his upbringing was deliberate, shaped by lessons learned the hard way. Today, Kieran Culkin is 44 years old. He continues to work across film, television, and theater, respected for restraint rather than nostalgia. With an estimated $5 million net worth, his story stands as a rare inversion, leaving audiences stunned by how quietly resilience can win. Angela Goethals as Linny McAllister. Linny McAllister, the sharp-tongued, independent older sister in Home Alone, was portrayed by Angela Goethals. At 13 years old, she gave the family chaos a dose of teenage detachment, standing apart rather than piling on. That composure hid an early pressure few noticed. Born on May 20th, 1977, in New York City, Angela Bethany Goethals grew up in a supportive household led by her mother, a teacher. Yet the demands of child acting arrived early. Auditions, rehearsals, and expectations tightened around her before adolescence had room to breathe. Even success came with adult scrutiny placed on a child's shoulders. Her career unfolded in thoughtful steps. After Home Alone, she balanced screen roles with education, later returning with impact on television in 24, where her portrayal of Maya Driscoll brought psychological fragility into sharp focus. She also earned cult recognition in Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, proving range beyond nostalgia. Still, the industry's pace never dictated her identity. Stability mattered more than visibility. Married to Russell Soder since 2005, Goethals chose family over constant exposure, raising 2 children while quietly stepping back from Hollywood's churn. The decision looked calm from the outside, but it meant closing doors she had worked hard to open. Now, Angela Goethals is 49 years old. She lives largely outside the spotlight, remembered fondly rather than relentlessly pursued. Her estimated $500,000 net worth reflects a career shaped by intention, leaving on her own terms before the industry decided for her. Hilary Wolf as Megan McAllister. Megan McAllister, the patient, watchful sister in Home Alone, was played by Hilary Wolf. At 13 years old, she brought restraint to a family bursting with noise, her calm presence often overlooked. The role felt modest, but it marked a turning point. What followed was a choice almost no one expected. Born on February 7, 1977 in Chicago, Illinois, Hillary Jocelyn Wolfe entered acting young, finding early success without visible turmoil. Yet Hollywood never became her destination. Even as Home Alone and Waiting for the Light placed her on screen, a different discipline began pulling her away. She walked away from acting to pursue judo, trading cameras for mats. The transition was unforgiving, but it carried purpose. Wolfe rose to elite competition, representing the United States at the 1996 and 2000 Olympic Games, absorbing defeat and resilience in equal measure. Fame faded, replaced by something harder and quieter. Her personal life found grounding beyond performance. Married to Chris Saba since 2002, she built a family with 2 sons and co-founded a wrestling club, passing discipline forward rather than chasing applause. The shift was complete, irreversible, and deliberate. Today, Hillary Wolfe is 49 years old. She lives in Colorado Springs, far from Hollywood, defined by sport, family, and teaching, rather than memory. With an estimated $300,000 net worth, her story stuns not for loss, but for courage, the rare strength to leave the spotlight and never look back. Michael C. Maronna as Jeff McAllister. Jeff McAllister, the apathetic, sarcastic older brother in Home Alone, was played by Michael C. Maronna. At 13 years old, he projected teenage indifference with such ease that it felt less like acting and more like instinct. His brief moments on screen sharpened the family's internal tension without stealing the spotlight. That casual detachment would later become a deliberate choice. Born on September 27, 1977, in Brooklyn, New York, Maronna grew up in a grounded household with a firefighter father and a guidance counselor mother. Childhood was steady, but the demands of working young pushed him to think beyond fame early. The Adventures of Pete and Pete gave him cultural permanence as Big Pete, while later roles appeared sporadically in projects like Slackers. Yet the industry's instability never felt like a loss. By his mid-30s, he deliberately stepped away from acting's uncertainty. That pivot defined him. Maronna trained as a film electrician and sound technician, joining IATSE and working behind the scenes on productions across New York. The shift traded applause for reliability, a rare move that preserved his sanity when many child actors unraveled. In 2026, Michael C. Maronna is 49 years old. He balances selective acting, technical film work, podcasting, and family life with his wife Jennifer and their child. His estimated $500,000 net worth reflects a life recalibrated, not diminished, by choosing stability over nostalgia. Kristin Minter as Heather McAllister. Heather McAllister, the careful, watchful cousin in Home Alone, was portrayed by Kristin Minter. At 25 years old, she brought quiet maturity to a household spinning out of control. Her presence felt responsible, almost parental, amid the noise. That restraint mirrored a career shaped by patience rather than spectacle. Born on November 22nd in Miami, Florida, Kristin Minter entered acting with ambition but learned early how unforgiving momentum could be. Early visibility came fast, but sustaining it required constant recalibration. After Home Alone, she faced a jarring swing. A role in Cool as Ice brought notoriety and a Razzie nomination, a moment that could have derailed her entirely. Instead, she regrouped, finding longevity on television, most notably on ER. Her personal life carried its own reset. Married to Sonder Carey Zagzebski in 2010, the relationship ended in divorce in 2018, closing a chapter without public spectacle. She returned to work with renewed focus, letting consistency speak louder than headlines. Today, Kristin Minter is 61 years old. She continues to act selectively, respected for durability rather than hype. With an estimated $1 million net worth, her story resonates quietly. Proof that survival in Hollywood sometimes means staying standing, not standing out. 36 years later, the laughter is still there, but the lives behind it have changed forever. Which Home Alone cast story shocked you the most, and whose journey stayed with you long after the credits rolled? If you enjoyed this deep dive into then and now, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the stories Hollywood never tells.